welcome to Taiwan Talk. I'm Trevor Tortomasi. This week, I'm speaking with Esther Chen, a performer of many talents. Esther was born in Taiwan, but has spent many years in both Taiwan and the U.S., honing her craft in film, theater, and stand-up comedy, and even hosting a successful podcast along the way, all in multiple languages. So, we mostly know you from your stand-up. Did you start with comedy, or...?
No, I started with acting for a long time. I was 4. This is a children's English language kindergarten here in Taiwan where I started learning English. And we had to recite The Night Before Christmas. And I was narrator 1. On the night before Christmas, the end.
Okay. And you were 4 and you did all that?
I was 4, maybe 5. But that was I have a very clear memory of being on stage when I was a kid.
So you've been doing comedy for a while. Where do you get your comedy fuel?
I mean, I can give you the crappy version.
Sure. Well,
I live my life and I find inspiration.
Some people do that. I doubt there's ever really just one way, but I mean, how often, the question is, how often do you have to sit down and actively force inspiration out of yourself?
It depends. So There are days where, for example, I either have a really easy time coming with stuff or I don't. And when I do, it's how can you not talk about it? Did you hear my car accident joke? I was hit by a car in Taipei next to Dan Park at the southeast corner. And he was right by the expressway. He was taking a right around the park, and I was crossing the street, and he hit me. So of course it's going to have so much material that comes out of it because it's just such a startling event.
Yeah.
But the moment I got hit, it's just all these joke thoughts just came out, which is pretty messed up, I guess, right? Because
I think you've definitely answered the question. Where do you get your comedy fuel? The other day I got hit by a car.
No, seriously, because I think the first thing that happened is I screamed, right? And I haven't heard myself scream in such a long time. A joke came out. I was the moment the car
rubber chickens.
The moment the car hit me, I let out this scream like Mariah Carey had a bikini wax. Right? I was like, hey! And I was just so surprised by my range because normally I'm a tenor. Turns out I'm an operatic soprano. So as he was saying this to me, the joke started to form. He was like, 小姐, I didn't see you. 我的 A 柱挡到你了, which is your car frame, your window frame on the side. He was like, I didn't see you. And I was like, oh my God, he thinks I'm thin. Which is the nicest compliment I've received from a Taiwanese guy. Because I've never had a Taiwanese man be like, oh, 你好瘦,瘦到我看不见你, I'm glad that joke worked. God
that one did.
Lord have mercy.
Weirdly,
wow, you're a hard audience, man.
Mostly what makes me laugh at comedy shows is the silences in between jokes rather than the jokes themselves. I don't know why that's my sense of humor, but I'm not
You're a terrible audience.
I'm a terrible audience.
Lord.
Yeah, sorry.
And then I had other stuff. And when I went home, my mom, she just asked me all these weird questions. And it's real. Everything happened in the joke. She was I was like, Mom, I got hit by a car, right? I ran in my house and I was like, I got hit by a car. And she wasn't like, oh, are you okay? Are you injured? She was like, what kind of vehicle was it? And it's just how can that not be shared somehow?
Yeah, wow. Your mom is the fuel of a lot of your comedy. Speaking of locals and comedy, a Taiwanese comedian, he once told me that it's easier to get laughs from a Taiwanese audience.
Who is this person?
I'm not going to name him.
You have to.
I'm not going to name him.
Okay, say it and then cut it out. It's so different. I would say they work differently, and you have to work with them differently. You sort of have to at least for the Taiwanese audience, you have to tailor to their taste. And if you do, then it's easy. And if you don't, it's not.
Is developing a set more difficult in English or Chinese for you specifically?
For me, definitely Chinese because I'm new to the Chinese scene. So that's...
How many minutes of
Chinese do I have?
How many minutes of material do you have in English and how much in
probably
Chinese?
Probably an hour in English.
Okay.
I would guess. Of all the things I've ever written, probably 2 hours, but I don't do them because not all of them are
right.
great.
So the stuff that you feel good about.
I would say the stuff that I have... So currently on the tour at the moment, I have 40 minutes of good material that I'm proud of.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. 40 minutes of stuff I'm not disgusted by and I have fun telling it. The other stuff are either I've said it too many times, it's too old, it's no longer relevant.
Was developing comedy sets easier in Taipei or New York, place-wise?
Developing. If you're talking about developing jokes, definitely New York. Simply because it has a more accurate result. So when you throw out a new joke, you might have levels of laughter. So let's say like you go to an open mic and there's 5 sad comics. I mean, you might get like one huh at like one punch, and then like no huhs is anywhere else, but you might get a few like. But let's just say like the same joke at a certain point, once you develop it to a certain extent, you bring it to an audience, the places that people laugh and the level that they laugh is in correspondence to the reactions you get somewhere else. It's more consistent. It's not always consistent because there's always other variations. Like somebody barges in, like somebody does something distracting, someone talks loudly, you know, that's all counts into distractions. But for the most part, the consistency is much easier in New York City. Because I think, you know, it has a longer history of stand-up comedy. So when people consume it, they're sort of at the more same level. The first couple of people that go up, they're not going to get the same amount of laughs as the people who go in the second half, and that's just
how it works.
Thing. That's just culturally they're not used to warming up. For example, in New York City, they say the golden spot is the 4th spot. Right, at an open mic, if you have 20 or 15 people, the 4th person gets the best reaction because they're just warmed up enough and they're not tired. Okay. In Taipei, it's like the 9th person.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if that tells you anything. And they're friendly people. It's not like they don't want, they're very supportive. They're smiling. You can see their teeth.
Yeah.
You can see them like hovering their face with their hands, like just like muffled laugh, or like they stick their face into somebody else's armpit, like trying not to make sound. But it's like, no, we need you to make the sound. Also, like laughter is like a very like contagious. If there's one crazy person consistent laughing, you kind of can't help but join. It's like a yawn. If one person yawns, everybody yawns.
Oh, yeah. Have you had experiences in Taiwan that have changed how you may approach writing or performance when you're back in the U.S.?
So what's interesting is that the U.S. makes Asians so like homogenized that you refer to yourself as an Asian person. And as a Taiwanese person, I care a lot about Taiwanese politics more so than U.S. politics. It's hard for me not to write about it. But when I do, it doesn't work in the States. Like, for example, my voting joke, I actually wrote. I wrote it 2 years ago and has never once worked in New York. Have you heard my voting joke? They asked me if I've been to China in the last 3 months. And I was like, it's a funny question because in January, I went home to Taiwan to vote for the presidential election and to get the virus. And in my opinion, I didn't go to China. But in China's opinion, I went to China, which is impossible because, as I said, I went home to vote for the presidential election. And it's never worked. It's never once worked in New York City. And to me, it's like, how do you not know?
Right.
How are you surprised by this? Because even when Hong Kong was going on for a year and nobody knew about it. The protests in Hong Kong have been going on. The tear gas has been going on. And then we're talking about like Xinjiang. Nobody knew anything. Nobody.
Yeah. And
of course, I understand, right? There's in America's perspective, there's Syria, there's Mexico, there's the families being separated. There's so many things that there's like the Alabama stuff happening. Like there's so much to think about. But to me, it's like, how can we discuss so much about China and the States and not even know the basic principles of how the country works?
You worked as a dialect coach for actors in the American film industry to improve their Chinese.
Yes.
How did that go?
I worked on two shows mainly. How did it go? In what aspect? Specifically what?
One of the questions I was wondering is it harder to teach pronunciation or tones?
Yes, it's very hard.
Which one?
Oh, tones.
Okay, or both is fine too.
Tones is much harder than pronunciation. Okay. Absolutely.
Were you teaching people who had previous experience at all? Both. Okay.
I taught both. And it was hard for everyone alike. I don't think people with experience found it any easier, honestly.
Do you feel happy with the result?
Well, it's hard for me to say the result because once you have a take, there's so many elements that go into it, right?
Yeah.
There's the right angle, there's the right lighting. If it's like one whole shot without any cuts for like 10 minutes, like I would say.
And if everything went right except the pronunciation,
then
they're
like
keep
screw the pronunciation.
Right,
you know, it's like that's such a minor thing in comparison to all the technical aspect. Like the lighting has to hit right here. It's gonna be no boom shadows. Like there's like hundreds of people working on this one shot. So I would say like people definitely here are frustrated when I understand. I don't think anyone in their right mind would blame you for the exact result. I kind of want to know what the journey was like though, trying to get these people to speak a language that they weren't used to. People definitely got frustrated. Okay. And I'm also a really hard teacher. I mean, looking back, I think I would have given them a little more lax, But not that I was like mean or harsh, but I have very high standards. But that's also like, I was being told, they need to sound native. You're talking about like someone who's never spoken Chinese to sound fluent and native.
It's
native.
Tough. Yeah.
That's a lot to ask for within a short amount of time. So
how short of amount of time?
I would say a month or 2 months.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. But these are people who like, it's not like they live in Taiwan, like they hear it all the time. Like people live in New York City, they live in Los Angeles.
Like you were their only frame of reference.
Pretty much.
Wow.
And it wasn't like they wanted, not that they don't want to learn Chinese, but it's like, it's not something that they put down on a list as a hobby. Like, I'm going to learn Chinese, it's just part of their job and they're going to do it, but it's not the same thing as like, I moved to Asia to learn how to speak Chinese. It's a very different kind of commitment. And they also have other stuff to do. They have other scenes to shoot. They have fittings, they have rehearsals. They have so many other scenes that are not in Mandarin to memorize. Like, this is one small part of what they do. And sometimes they do a really great job, sometimes they don't. And that really depends on the take that comes out. Every take is so different. Because, like, it's sort of this interesting thing, like, sort of you sleep on it and you forget it and you work on it again. So, like, every morning you sort of, like, step back 3 steps. And you might work really hard today and you step forward 5 steps. And when you wake up again, you step back another 3 steps. So, I think the trick is, like, you kind of had to keep practicing it until you get to this golden spot where you're not like too tired that it's a little twisted in your mind and you just shoot it.
Yeah.
That's when you get the best result. But that's also hard to coordinate because the whole set and the whole schedule of the set does not surround
your language coaching.
Exactly.
Yeah. I guess, okay, you've also been a part of projects. Have you been a part of projects like HBO, MTV, Netflix as an actress?
Yes.
Okay.
My very first job was in Succession. Back then, this is like, 2017, 2016, 2017.
You're saying 2017 like it was a decade ago.
Well, I just don't remember. I just don't remember when this was. And that job gave me my union card. Great. Card. I mean, before that, I was like adding up points to becoming SAG. It was fun. We didn't think the show was going to explode. I knew nothing about the show other than like, oh, it's a British project. All right. Just like any other show. I've never heard of it. All right, who knows? And then,
I haven't seen it. What did you play in it?
I was just like working in the White House. I was like a person in the White House.
Succession makes me
I auditioned with this gigantic monologue. I had this really difficult, like...
Do you have like already 3 monologues on lock, one for each?
No. Like, no, it was a monologue from the show that they wanted me to say.
Oh,
and
wow.
it was like, we had like 24 hours of, and I didn't have a suit. So I like run around town looking for a suit, which is like crazy. I crapped in my pants so many times, just like, oh, I don't know where to find a suit that fits me. And you have to look very pristine for these auditions because they want to see the final product. That's sort of...
Well, also because there's so many people auditioning, I'm sure that like no matter how good you look, there's someone who's more prepared on the right day.
Exactly. I mean, like, if you have 2 both very good actors, right? Let's say like you've seen 200 people and 2 of them are just so great. One person has a really nice tailored suit and one person just doesn't. So who do you think is going to get the job?
Yeah.
I mean, this is out of 200 people, right? They're both good in their own way. It's already 2 out of 200.
Yeah. With competition like that, why you really do want to go back to New York?
New York is going through a really funny phase right now because some people have left. Some people have moved away from New York because our people are unemployed. So many reasons. People can't pay rent. People don't have their usual job that they had. A lot of people have left. And because of COVID, they usually want to work with people that are currently locally based in New York right now because they want people, it's easier to quarantine them like tomorrow for 2 weeks if they wanted to with the entire set. So people like me, I have a disadvantage because I'm so far away. So even though I'm like, I'm based in New York, but currently in Taipei, like they're not going to consider my tape just because of that.
What do you mean quarantine them?
So right now, how they're doing it is if you're going to get on set, the whole crew quarantines together with the cast for 14 days. And if during this time anyone tests positive, then they redo the whole thing again until it happens. I mean, listen, like just because it's COVID, the industry's not going to shut down. People are going to make the money. They're going to keep going and going at it. So they're going to find a way to make it happen. And that's currently how they're doing it. All the auditions are going through Zoom. They're doing different windows to make it happen. Yeah.
Wow.
That's how everything works right now. Even commercials. Commercials would never, you used to never come in self-tapes. Or even like if it did, it's only the initial round. But now we're seeing this trend, like everything's through Zoom.
And you want to get back to this?
I mean, it's just like, it's such a different time because
I couldn't begin to judge this desire, but I'm just so fascinated by it because it is so different from here.
Like, for example, back in the days, you could hire any celebrity you wanted from LA, right? You could hire anybody and you could fly anybody over. And it's not a problem. Distance is not a problem. Airfare is not a problem. They all have these deals with the companies. It's not a big deal. You can fly anyone anywhere. You're competing with LA and Vancouver and New York City and Georgia, Atlanta. But now you're competing only with one pool, and the pool's gotten smaller. So it's a completely new situation.
And you're
now.
ready to like elbow your way in.
No, I don't know if it's like that sense, but it's like we've all hustled so hard for 10 years. People don't understand how difficult this is to live through this. Like you wake up in the middle of the night, you're like, oh my God, what am I doing with my life? It happens every so often. People don't understand, like you don't know when your next paycheck is coming in. So suddenly when everything changes to be in your advantage, it's really hard not to be like, oh my God, I have to get a piece of that to help myself advance, to get out of, to level up.
How has your family handled all this, your career pursuits and such?
At the beginning, they did not know I was doing what I was doing for a very long time. It's just a world that they don't understand. Again, their understanding of actor is you go to the bars in the night, you entertain the wealthy people with alcohol, and, you know, kind of like Linson Bailu. That's kind of how their understanding of actors. You associate yourselves with the mobs, you have very strange relationships with them, and that's how you get work. That's their understanding of acting. Like this is what actors have to do, actors and models. And now that and maybe once upon a time that was the case in Taiwan. I mean, I didn't live through it. I don't know. It's very different from like the auditioning actor that we know in New York, like the hustling actor, like the, you know, waiter, hustling, bustling.
Is it because that
pavement? Is
it because there's so much work out there in New York that it's just if you hustle enough, you'll eventually get something? Is that sort of?
Or you don't.
Or you don't.
Or you don't. I'm not really sure. I mean, the market functions really differently even now. The market in Taiwan versus the market in New York, it still runs extraordinarily different. And I think it has to do with that culture.
Recognition or success completely aside, what is your favorite thing that you've done?
Okay, so I don't know if this is the most fun, but I think it's one of the scariest projects just because of who it was.
Like fear for your own safety kind of scary?
No. Like I did a promo with Jerry Seinfeld for his special, and he has a very big presence, and he knows what he wants.
Yeah.
And so he demands for it, and you have to give it quick, like at the spot. Like he asks it, you have to give him an answer. Because
if you don't, someone else will be faster, and then they'll get a, you know.
I mean, I don't know if that was the case when you're already on set, but there's still that, like Jerry asked you a question, answer now. And he knows what he wants, and he knows what he doesn't want.
Yeah.
And he's very quick with his answers. So like after a take, he'll give me 5 notes, and you would have to do all of them in the next take. And it's a lot because you have so little time, right? So it's literally like the moment you open the door, open it to 40-degree angle. Then at the same time, you got to hit the light switch and step exactly onto this mark in 2 steps and say your line before you get there. And that all has to happen. And then in the next take, they would change more stuff.
Did you hit all these
I
marks?
did, but it's like, it's a good challenge because I've been working as an actor for this long and no one's had to push me this far yet. Like I have the ability to do it, but no one's been this demanding for me to have to get it out of me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like I have the ability to do it. I've never been asked to on set, and I never think it would happen. Like someone would give you so many notes, even with just 2 lines. Because it's a promo, you know, like promos don't go on forever.
It's so scary, and I'm genuinely like,
it's scary.
I can empathize with the fear, but also
I can feel that people don't breathe.
But also hearing it all in Jerry's voice is really funny.
I don't know if that was the case.
Okay.
But like, yeah, you can feel that people aren't breathing into their diaphragms. Like,
and that was your favorite thing that you've ever done?
I mean, I don't know if that's see, that's the thing. Like, it's just so interesting.
There's a whole
I don't know if that's like my whole like, but it's I've never worked with someone like that. Like people weren't themselves when he was around. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if he was in the room, you weren't just you anymore. You were like a version of you with him in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's terrifying.
I'm trying to think of someone who has such a big presence and you sort of don't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you dream of getting there someday?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Unironically.
It's hard though, but I mean, it's
unabashedly.
Hard. I do.
You want to walk into a room and make everyone perform.
Scared. Fear. I mean, I don't know if it's that, but it's like he's so iconic and he's such in some ways, like a historical figure that's still alive because of what he's done in the American comedy scene. So
he is.
So like, how can you not? I wouldn't even call it you were starstruck. It's not even that. It's like history is interacting with you. I don't know.
Right.
There's no better word to like describe the feeling. So is it my favorite project? I mean, it's just it's such an I'm never gonna forget this for sure.
Where can people find you if they want to see more?
Yes, I am on Instagram and Facebook. Facebook, the Esther Chen.
And you've got a podcast?
I do. Thank you for reminding me. I have a podcast in Chinese. It's called 好戲開場. It's Showtime. It's easier to find with the Chinese characters. 好戲開場.
And that's all for this week. Thanks for listening to Taiwan Talk with the amazing Esther Chen. Until next time, I'm Trevor Tortomasi on ICRT FM 100.